Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up, the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life that feels good. Because after all, that's what we want. We want to feel good. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Today on the show, we're going to be visiting with Christy Sloan. I've had the good fortune of getting to know Christy and learn about the inspiring journey she's been on, which has led her to an interesting place in her life. She's a coach, a nurse, and the creator of a curriculum called Sober and Powerful for people who are sober curious. And what is sober curious? Good question, right? Well, she's going to answer that and more during the interview. As you know, when I meet inspiring people, I like you to meet them. So stick around for that conversation. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that if you have questions you would like us to answer on or off the air, you can email those directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. And you can also visit me at my website, fletcherellingson.com, where I've got all sorts of free resources you can check out. You don't have to figure all this life out on your own. There are answers and solutions and ways to get unstuck and move forward powerfully. Now, at this point in the show, I usually take time to answer an email question and offer some coaching, but today we're going to skip that part because I want to give some extra time to this important conversation with Christy. We're going to take a short commercial break, and then we'll be right back, so stay with us. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. So glad you're here. I'm so glad you're in this conversation. Today on the show is Christy Sloan. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. We're going to talk about what you're doing in the coaching space, which is very exciting. But first, we've got to start off with some wins. So give me a couple of wins. What's going well for you in your life?
Yeah, well, I'm here today, so this is a really exciting opportunity, and I just want to thank you for having me here.
Oh, absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another thing that's really exciting that's happening in my life right now is I just finished a 12-week course in nurse coaching, and I've wrapped up the beginning of that training, and now we're setting into the practicum. So I've got another 12 weeks, and I'm starting to practice my coaching skills with coaching clients and using my nursing skills in a different way. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. So you've got a couple different programs for coaching that we're going to talk about, and you are you're a nurse yourself, right? You're a registered nurse.
Yes.
Is that accurate? Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got that skill set, plus you're bringing the coaching element to it, so you can support nurses in the industry, which can be very overwhelming. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Right on.
Lots of exciting things happening.
So today we're talking about this thing called Sober Curious. For those who are not familiar with that phrase, I love that phrase. It's so cool. Tell us what that means to you.
Yeah. To me, sober curious is a person who recognizes that their relationship with alcohol might not be serving their life. They're not so caught up on answering the question whether or not they're an alcoholic, that they are more concerned with building a life that matches their values. And they see that alcohol might be keeping them from reaching goals or keeping them from being the person that they envision themselves to be.
So would you say somebody who is sober curious that they've been questioning it for a while, like this is like, it's like they're seeing behavioral patterns and they're beginning to question? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, to me, a sober curious person recognizes that alcohol is maybe causing problems in their life or problems in a life of somebody that they know, and they want to take action to change their relationship with alcohol, and they're really ready to make that step. There's not a whole lot of denial wrapped up in this relationship. They recognize that it's either a problem or it's not serving their life, and they're ready to take that next step to explore sobriety.
Yeah, got it. And this could be for people who are not necessarily alcoholics, right? But it's simply like gosh, I'm feeling like my relationship with alcohol is just like too frequent, or I'm having, it's become like a habit almost,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I like also what you said, it may be causing issues for them or somebody else.
Yes.
And the reason I'm calling that one out is because a lot of time I think people like, oh, it's not causing a problem for me, but if it's causing a problem for their spouse or their children or something, again, that's something to look at and get curious around, right?
Right, because it's so important to recognize that when we have patterns in our lives that are disruptive not only to ourselves, but to the people around us, we have a responsibility to make changes if those patterns are causing other people hurt or causing problems in the lives of other people.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about your journey to sobriety?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so my journey to sobriety started about 14 years ago. I was in my early 20s, and I started to recognize that the life that I was living did not match up with what I had envisioned, as a younger woman. And I really didn't like the way that I was feeling. I was drinking really frequently and drinking too much every time that I would drink, and my life just felt empty and flat, and I wanted more for myself. And so I quit drinking for a year and a half, and during that time I really just kind of dove into work and didn't really do a lot of internal work. So I was kind of white knuckling sobriety, I like to call it, because I still had a lot of this pain and baggage from things that happened in my childhood that I hadn't taken care of. So about a year and a half into that stint of sobriety, I found out that my dad had terminal cancer. And at that point, all the baggage that I had, plus the pain of learning that my dad was dying, it just became too much. So I started drinking again to cope, to kind of self-medicate. And my dad, he lived for a year after his diagnosis, and during that time I started to fall back into old patterns and old behaviors with drinking. And I think it's important to know that my dad had esophageal cancer, and the number one and number two reasons why people develop that cancer are from drinking and smoking. And my dad did both of those things. So I became a mom during this year and a half of sobriety too, and I just remember looking at my baby and thinking, man, I don't ever want my child to have to watch me suffer to this degree from a lifestyle choice, so that was hugely motivating for me to change my life.
Yes.
And yeah, so I started attending a 12-step program, and that program was called Celebrate Recovery. And their motto is for your hurts, habits, and hangups. So for me, it was a great avenue into getting some help that removed kind of whether or not I was an alcoholic. I definitely had hurts, I definitely had habits that were self-destructive, and I definitely had hangups. So it was this great opportunity for me to start working on my life. And
nice.
Yeah, and I was really involved in that program for about 7 years. And then I unfortunately went through a divorce and kind of started self-medicating with alcohol again. And during that time, I think outwardly, people would have not thought that I had a problem, but inwardly, internally, I was really struggling again with just really being embarrassed and ashamed that I had had all of this time in sobriety and was drinking again, had gone through a divorce, and during this time also, this is when I became a nurse. So I was growing professionally, so outwardly it looked like I had things together, but my internal life was just starting to kind of crumble again. So now I've got another 3 years of sobriety again, and I have this resolve that I've never had before. Like, there's no questioning for me whether or not sober living is the best option for me. I've tested it. For me, it's the very best option, and it's a really it's a wonderful place to be, you know, when you're really secure in who you are and what your mission and purpose are in life. And for me, you know, I really feel strongly about that right now.
Yeah, good. Thanks for sharing all that. I appreciate that. I acknowledge you for that. I know it's sharing vulnerably, so thank you. And I love what you just said. When you're secure in your kind of like your purpose, right? It makes such a difference, right? You have this compelling future that you want to live into.
Yes.
Really, really neat. So how did you end up in the coaching space after all of this?
Yeah, so, you know, when I look back at everything that I've gone through, coaching has kind of been this theme, but I didn't have like a label to assign it, you know? So when I was involved in the 12-step program, I was involved in leadership and worked with some people as a sponsor and accountability partner. And so coaching has just kind of been this natural theme for my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as a nurse, you know, I have always, the whole time I was in nursing school and even through my bachelor's program, I just saw myself working with people more on a one-on-one basis, helping them make lifestyle changes, helping them get control of their health, you know, before they end up in the hospital. And so when I found nurse coaching and found professional coaching, it just was like the obvious avenue for me to start exploring, because it's this natural expression of my gifts and talents, and it's awesome.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I want to talk more about that. We're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
Stay with us. This is a great conversation, and it's going to get even better as we dive into coaching around professionalism and sober curious. Stick with us. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. Today on the show, we've got Christy Sloan. She is a professional coach. She's a registered nurse, and she's combining her skill set to make a greater impact in the world. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're talking about the sober curious. And when somebody gets to that point and they become curious about their relationship to alcohol, which I imagine that happens frequently for people, right?
Yeah.
But there is something that stops them from then taking an action or getting coaching or going to get help. Or what do you think is getting in the way of them going beyond just getting curious?
Yeah, what I recognize with most women who have reached out to me is fear is the number one thing that holds people back. Yeah.
What do you think that fear is? Is it like a fear of losing respect, or a fear that people will see that they don't have it all together? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think for professional people, it's a fear of loss of respect, a fear that people will see that maybe they don't have it all together and don't have all the answers. And I think as professional people, we've really put ourselves on this, at this higher level of having all the answers. And so when you have a professional education and you're struggling with this thing in your life, you think logically, I should be able to handle this. And that just really shows, I think, the power of alcohol in people's lives. It is an addictive substance, and that doesn't matter if you are smart or intelligent or educated. It's a physiological thing that's happening in your body and your brain.
So glad you said all of that, because yes, intellectually we can understand this thing called alcoholism or addiction. We can understand it, and sometimes we think like, that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
Or I'm smart enough where I'll know if I've crossed a line. Or if I have crossed a line, I'm smart enough to know how to go back the other direction.
Right.
But what I hear you saying is it's not about intelligence.
It's not.
Right. There's this physiological addiction I mean, the chemistry in your brain, right? It's at the chemical level. And so it doesn't care about intelligence.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note too that binge drinking is really problematic among people who earn a higher wage. So it's binge drinking is typically when a woman has 4 or more drinks in one setting, and for a man it's 5 or more drinks in one setting. And this type of drinking actually happens when people earn about $75,000 annually or more. So it's a higher income bracket than what people would think.
Is there any ideas about why that might be?
Yeah, I think it really has to do with like the work hard, play hard mentality. We really see this a lot with people that are in professions that require a lot of networking, or there's lots of social events, and alcohol is this really wonderful lubricant for people to kind of let their inhibitions down, helps them interact socially, and they feel like it really enhances their personality, it makes them more interesting. And alcohol is really, it's involved in so much of our society, and this is where the slippery slope happens, right? You could be going out 2 nights a week for your job, networking, and then maybe going out with friends on the weekend, and the next thing you know, you're drinking more nights than not out of the week.
Right. And I remember you mentioned to me at one point there was a bit of a fear, like if I wasn't drinking, would I still be interesting, or could I still have fun?
Right.
Those are legitimate concerns of people, right, when they're questioning their relationship to alcohol. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that I personally experienced. I thought there was no way that I could be fun without alcohol, and I actually had people make comments that I am more fun when I'm drinking. And so this like kind of confirmed some fears that I had, but really what I've learned is that I can have fun in a way that doesn't make me feel embarrassed the next day,
Right.
And I just have fun differently, and in a way that makes me feel good. I can feel fun and silly and playful, and and I get to develop that and continue to work on myself and continue to grow, where alcohol just really kept me kind of stuck in a certain level of fun, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And so what I hear you saying is you're learning how to be more intentional about creating joy and levity and fun.
Right, yeah, and joy was really an emotion that I had no access to when I was drinking. I had fun, but never experienced joy. And so that for me is so powerful in sobriety, to start to access these higher levels of emotions that I can't even tell you when I was drinking what joy felt like. And when I saw people having authentic joy in their life, I was really envious, because I knew it was something that I wasn't experiencing.
Oh, that is so interesting. Yeah. So because to experience joy, it does require a certain degree of being present or self-aware, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
And also, one of the things I teach my clients is joy really comes from a sense of gratitude as well. And if we're not feeling grateful, it's going to be hard to access joy, right? Still have fun, but very different than being grateful and joyful.
Right.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Let's see. All right, so you've got experience coaching, and you've got a couple different programs. There's one for people who are sober curious, and there's another for nurses. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So I am getting training as a professional nurse coach. So what nurse coaching is it allows people to explore what is important in their life, right? So people have health goals that they set out to achieve, and often they think that it's one thing that they want, but when we start to do work, we realize that there's some deeper level stuff that we have to address to help them move forward. So what gets people to me is one thing, but when we start to do the work, we realize that it's actually a deeper level.
Right. And I would imagine in the nursing space, there is an incredible demand mentally and physically on the nurse, yeah?
Yes.
And it's give, 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 long hours, and then how do I refuel? How do I take care of myself if I'm finding myself upset? Getting curious about the level of upset, how to manage that high level of stress. Are those all things you address in your coaching curriculum?
Yeah, so in my coaching curriculum, I teach people tools. We talk about meditation and mindfulness, loving kindness meditations, breath work, looking at sleep, looking at diet, looking at all of these things that affect us as a person, a whole person, right? And we look to what is important for them. I try to help them access parts of themselves that maybe are shut off, because sometimes it's really hard for us if we're in survival mode for a long time to recognize what it is we need. And so these tools in my program help people start to recognize their needs. And sometimes they're very, very basic needs, like, am I getting enough sleep? Am I drinking enough water through the day? And once we start to take care of those pretty basic needs, then we can start to work on the things that are at a deeper level.
Yeah, I love that. We have to take care of the basic stuff before we can really get to the deep behavioral things. Yeah, really good. We only have just another minute or so left, but one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how can people get in touch with you if they're curious about either of your programs?
Yeah, you can get in touch with me. I'm on Instagram, so my handle is Christy Sloan Coaches, and you can also send me an email at ChristinaSloanRN@gmail.com.
Right on. Good. And I assume they can set up some sort of discovery call with you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so discovery calls are just a chance for us to get to know each other and for me to hear what your goals are and for us to develop a plan to see if moving forward and working together is the best next step.
Excellent. And the last thing I want to say is there's such great value in working with a coach. There's great value in having mentors, coaches, teachers in our lives at every level of our life.
Right.
And I think probably one of the biggest benefits of working with someone like yourself is that there's going to be a high level of accountability. There's going to be a high level of compassion, of relatability, because you've gone through this, right? I mean, you've lived it, and you have tapped into all this understanding and these tools that have allowed you to really transform areas of your life. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're sober curious, if you're a nurse and you're looking to get a handle on how to live more peacefully with your job and your family life, get in touch with Christy. I've had the privilege of knowing her. Wonderful woman. Highly recommend her. Christy Sloan. Look her up on Instagram, Facebook, etc. All right, we got to run. So now it's time for you to get out there. Be a source of kindness. Be a source of contribution. You do have something to offer this world, and I believe in you.